it's getting a little bit warmer here in Boston and it's feeling really nice. And I think a lot of us are starting to feel like we're coming alive. Today, I wanted to talk about some hot takes, unpopular opinions that I have about being an artist online. And please take these with a grain of salt. I'm just posting to learn how to make YouTube videos. But I do want to hear from you. Like, I want to hear your hot takes and your opinions on these things. So comment. I don't know what came over me, but in my head I was like, I need chunky pink highlights immediately. Sectioned out some pieces and gave myself some stripes. It feels a lot like those like Hot Topic clip-in extensions that I used to buy when I was in middle school. I kind of love that about it. So I'm kind of bringing the like 2020 e-girl vibe back with this hair. So I like it. It's fun. Already I'm like, oh god, now I have to upkeep it because I spent all this time growing out my natural hair color. Like, this is my natural hair color and it's the first time I've ever grown it out since I was, again, in middle school. So really, it turns out I really like my natural hair color, but I was like, okay, now that I have a full head of hair of my natural hair color, I'm ready to do something fun with it. So I called it my art hot takes when I started writing it down in my notebook. So for real, grab whatever you are working on, grab your sketchbook, grab a bevy. Oh my god, I put it in the freezer to get colder and I always forget and I let my drinks freeze. Those are purple from dyeing my partner's hair purple. I managed to get most of it off my hands, but it has not come off my nails. Disclaimer, 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 these are just my opinions. You don't have to agree with me. In fact, I would love to start a conversation about these things. I feel like I tried to pick some things that like aren't super, I was about to say super superficial, that aren't really superficial and, you know, like are nuanced. There's definitely nuance there. So like, don't take this too seriously, you know, it's like, this is Sophie. She says, hey. She gets really jealous when she hears me talking whenever I'm like on a Zoom meeting or something. And I think that's what she thought is happening. She always comes in when I'm talking to myself. So stick around for more Sophie. Hot takes, my hot takes. I literally wrote this in my notebook like it was a journal entry. So don't mind me if I'm like looking at this notebook or reading from it a little bit. I didn't want to forget any of my thoughts when I was out and about and had thoughts. My first art-related hot take is that there absolutely is a difference between art and content. Like you know, you don't want to call your art content, but I'm a little bit sick of frustrations with the obligation of making content. Like, I feel a little bit like no one's making you make content, you know? And for me personally, making reels, making TikToks, making videos, making posts, picking out trending audios or whatever, like, it's part of the fun to me for the most part. So I really just feel like people who really struggle with making content kind of market themselves that way. Like, I guess my hot take is like, don't make content then. You don't have to, you know? Like, you can just make your art for yourself and it can be fulfilling that way. And that is not me saying don't share your art. I'm just saying that, like, if you feel like you're not getting any benefit from making content about your art, then, you know, like, what's the point? Is it worth it to make content about your art? I don't know. You could share it to just still photos of your art, scans, right? You could post those to Tumblr. You could just post still images to Instagram. You don't necessarily have to go the content making route. And I guess I'm just a little bit like, I'm a little bit over the conversation about like artists having to make reels or TikToks because, one, I think you can do it in a way that feels comfortable and relatable to you. So like, one example for me, I'm a painter. I tend to wait until the painting is close to finished, unless I'm doing like, I'm starting a painting. But I tend to wait until the painting is almost done so that it looks pretty good already. And then all you need for content is 7 to 10 seconds of something happening. So, you know, that could be you flipping the canvas. As much as people say they hate that, it gets eyes. Like it works, right? But if you don't even want to do that, you want to stay true to yourself, and that feels too phony, which I totally relate to, you can just like add a couple of paint strokes and record that. I kind of feel like recording your whole process isn't really worth the time unless you're planning to, you know, make a full time-lapse video or kind of like pull it together at the end. If you feel like you won't be consistent with it, like I learned that I'll start filming it when I start creating it, and then I'll finish it without ever taking more footage of it, and then I'm like, well, I don't really like the footage I have, and I never made a full process video out of it, right? So I tend to just leave it towards the end, and once something looks semi-decent, you can even fake putting stuff on there. Like put like just the lightest touch of pencil to paper and like draw over some strokes that you already did. Or for me, like if I were to do an example, this is a painting of said orange cat that I'm working on, I might like record me adding some shading to these stripes or like a highlight on her face. And I kind of feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be extra work, you know? And it's not me saying that you can't complain, like I'm literally here complaining, but I just feel like if you're not someone who wants to make content, then don't make content. I also think if something about content creation that you do like is the community building aspect, like gaining a following, talking to people about art, I really believe you can do that without going through the motions of content creation, like trying to get eyeballs on your stuff in that way, where it's like clickbaity, like the way I'm saying, like this is my hot takes, right? And just keep posting your art, you know, and people who like it will like it, and it'll be a little bit slower, but I personally, I guess this is the hot take. I think growing slower is worth the trade-off than feeling like you're performing and being phony all of the time. So if the content creation doesn't feel fun to you, I just don't think you should do it. It's a lot of work and it can be really exhausting, and I just like, why put yourself through it? You know what I mean? I guess that's kind of how I see that. So that is my hot take number 1. I don't know how hot of a take it is. I think that the hotness comes from it's okay to grow slower. Like, in fact, maybe you probably should, and find your real community, the collectors who are gonna really like your stuff, the people who wanna follow your journey and see you succeed. I think that's way more worth it than trying to go viral or trying to market. And now, I think that can be different for someone who's like a shop owner and they're doing a marketing campaign alongside a drop. Like, I understand that, and like maybe that's not your favorite part of having this kind of business, and I get that, I relate to that. But I just kind of mean, like, if you are a artist who's just making art and not creating a small business of that art other than perhaps showing that art and selling that art, yeah, I just don't know if content creation is worth it. This is another one that I actually do think is kind of like, when I was saying like conversational, nuanced, this is something that someone posted on Threads, and I've been thinking about it since. And when I read you the date of this post, you will be like, damn girl, you have been thinking about that for a long time. I have. December 6th, this person wrote, what I've noticed on social media for the last 6 months as an artist, people don't like intermediate art. I've seen beginners with really rough art get hundreds of interactions, and I've seen master artists get thousands, which they earned, I agree. But anytime I see fairly good intermediate clean art, or even my own art, they say, it gets very low interaction. I posted one throwaway sketch that was kind of ass in my opinion, and people ate that shit up. But when I post something I worked hours on, literally no one cares. That was really interesting because I noticed that myself. And so I wrote back, wow, you're so right. I've been sharing my art for about 2 years now and feel like my reach and engagement has only fallen off as I've gotten better and started to develop a voice. Now people just want to come back when the voice is real strong. And so I kind of think from personal experience, right? Like newbies, people who are new to a skill or a hobby are really motivated to learn and they grow really quickly. And then once you kind of get into the groove of like you know all of the basic skills, but now you just have to keep applying them to become a master of your craft, then a lot of people lose interest because it can get a little boring from there, right? Someone said, from what I've seen, beginner artists are really engaged. They follow a lot of people, they comment on each other's posts, they're really excited about what they're doing. And I really feel like that engagement, that motivation, that confidence, that passion, as you kind of get into the more disciplinary part of learning a new skill or trade or craft, the vibe that you give off can kind of change. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I can totally see why people would kind of lose interest in someone who has maybe found a lot of the, or has maybe built a lot of the skills they need, but then are still kind of working out their voice or what they want their art to be about, right? So I don't know how hot of a take that is. Maybe other artists can actually relate to this experience, that kind of once they feel like they're in a intermediate place in their art, you know, people are less amazed by your skills and ability to like learn something new, and they're just kind of like, yeah, you can do art, good job. I guess I can kind of see that, right? But I don't know. If you are someone who has been doing art for like a long time, but maybe doesn't have like a huge online following or gallery presence or whatever, I'd love to know if this was your experience as well. Like if you've had kind of an up and then down and then back up, or if you think your peak was when you were a beginner artist. I also think that beginners have a lot of confidence. Like they're, what is the name? I don't know. Like it's like a social effect, right? Where like the more you know, the less you know, and like your confidence and knowledge like go hand in hand. Well, it's kind of the same thing, where it's like the more you know about making art and doing the basics and form and color theory and composition and everything, like once you know all that, you know what more there is to know. But maybe someone who doesn't necessarily see art in the same way or doesn't make art might not see it like that. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's actually the thing that inspired this video, which I don't know if that's silly, but it's my YouTube channel. There's a third hot take. Still life is not boring, and it never will be. I really think that something that is so special about still life art and still life painting. First, a lot of people think of it as a lesser form of art or a more elementary form of art because you learn it if you go to art school or if you're practicing art. You kind of like learn how to draw objects from reference images, then you learn how to draw objects from life, work up to people. But you know, still life is just things composed in a way and then presented on the canvas. Personally, I consider myself mostly a still life painter. Near me, I have this Sour Patch Kids painting, so I paint a lot of candy and food. I just think that like a lot of people might see this subject as not very special or interesting or worth painting, but I think that's really silly because personally I see still life as something that is almost journalistic and representative of a time, right? Like a time capsule. Like think about if you ever see old paintings or photographs of a young girl squeezing her cat, right? If you see something like that and then you're like, and it's from like 1804, it just makes you feel so much more connected to humanity because you might love your cat as much as that little girl loved her cat. Hell, I have 1, 2, 3 paintings of her who's underneath me in my eye line. Painting the everyday and painting the mundane, or photographing it, or however you do your art, whatever medium you choose, is actually really special and really reflects what humans found important at the time, part of their culture or a part of their everyday life. For me, that is things like my cat who I love and my favorite candy. So yeah, painting objects is like, it's almost anthropological, right? Like somebody looking back on art from 100 years from now is going to see the art that we create and make assumptions based on it, try to piece stories together about people. For that reason, I think still life is really important as an art form, and I certainly don't think it's boring. And I unironically believe that a painting of a vape of a freaking elf bar will be like of great importance one day. I wrote in my little notes, I paint in a way that's almost like a diary to look back on. So I do like to pick a lot of images that I just really like the memory of and kind of paint the image to kind of immortalize it. My next hot take, and I think this take is a little on the hotter side, but it actually relates to what I was saying earlier, which when I was talking about growing slowly, being more authentic and kind of better in the long run, right? I've written down, my next hot take is, I think more people should make art and not sell it. And maybe that's like me saying like unpopular opinion and everybody agrees, but let me tell you what I think. First of all, I know that's hypocritical. I know that's hypocritical of me because I sell my art. But to be fair, I live in an apartment with rooms this big and I cannot keep all of my art here all of the time. So that's kind of my reasoning for it. To be real, I really think that, especially in America, really conditioned to be looking for our next side hustle, our next gig, our next opportunity. The next way we can make passive income is the insidious energy that you feel every time someone's trying to sell you a course. Like, I feel like we're really conditioned to be looking for our next opportunity. And I think a lot of beginner artists, myself included, 100% myself included, jump into trying to sell their art and especially make reproductions of their art so quickly. And I'm also a believer of like, don't wait, just start. But I just feel like depending on how you're viewing your art practice, it's like worth it to spend a little more time to develop as an artist before trying to sell it. And I don't say that in like a you won't make money way. I honestly did better at markets and events when I was a beginner artist, which is related to hot take number two. Hot take number 2. I used to do better at markets when I was a beginner artist because people were just like, you have no training, how long have you been doing this? And I'd be like, oh, I picked it up this year. They'd be like, what? That's crazy. And they were like more likely to want to support me so that I'd keep going, right? If you're just looking, like if you're looking to make money immediately, I'm not saying to stop, but I'm just thinking like, for me, I started doing art as a practice, as a mindfulness practice, as a way to kind of like work on perfectionism. And when I began doing art kind of seriously and taking my art practice seriously, like wanting to do art every day, wanting to learn art, wanting to learn new techniques, I found myself spending a lot of time wondering how to monetize it and make a profit of it. And I just feel like when artists rush to set up shop, they can lose a lot of the joy and specialness. Like, I think it can really take over some of the practice of the art. And that's not, again, like, please start a shop if you want to, but I just think like if you're willing, take your time, because again, the slower you grow, the more authentic it'll be. I know I'm saying that from like a privileged position of I have a full-time job and I'm kind of choosing to work on this in all of my free time, and that's, you know, I can do that. I don't have kids. I'm not like a carer for anyone. I don't know. Slow down is my main point of this goddamn video, right? Ooh, I have a PS hot take actually. I have like a response to another hot take that I saw. I did see someone else, and this is kind of a common take. It's like a medium popular opinion, but I saw someone say like, I'm so sick of these cozy artists. Like everyone's aesthetic looks the same. And I was thinking about that and I totally see it. And I think that's why, and I'm not trying to say like I'm better than anyone, because please God, I'm not. I know I'm not. I'm literally just learning how to do this. I do think that people are kind of trying to chase something specific sometimes, and a goal of mine starting this channel and posting my work online, you'll see it in my description. I say like, for me, this is perfectionism exposure therapy. All of it is. And I'm like literally working on like trying not to feel embarrassed all of the time. So this platform is a way for me to do that. And that's why I'm also saying, like, start your shop, you know, post your content. Like, I also believe in those things, but I'm just saying, from someone who's been doing art for a few years now, this is my experience, these are my thoughts. So yeah, really feel like there's a lot of creators who see something that's successful and then kind of emulate it, and that's fine, that's normal, that happens in marketing, but it gets hard to capture your personality if your video kind of feels like everybody else's. And so that's not to say that this is any better, but that's just kind of a feeling I've been having as a consumer of art YouTube. So let me know if you agree. All right, so those are my hot takes. I don't know how hot they are. I'm just trying to learn how to do this, so forgive me if I'm putting out a short video about nothing. And if you're watching it, thank you. I appreciate you. Okay, I have an art shop, I have an Instagram. I'm not good at TikTok, but that's all down there. I would love it if you subscribed. Let me know your hot takes. What's your biggest hot take?